to another Silly Science with Sierra. Today we're doing some silly science with one of my favorite things you can find out in nature, pine cones. But what are pine cones? What are they for? Can these pine cones be my new best friends? We'll explore all these questions and more with today's Silly Science experiment.
Silly Science with Sierra.
Today I have a very special guest who will be helping us with our experiment today and who loves pine cones probably more than I do myself. So, without further ado, please welcome Hope. Hello.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing great, feeling a little silly. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited for our pine cone experiment today.
Awesome. Well, today's experiment is going to be a lot of fun. But first, let's get something out of the way. What is a pine cone exactly?
That's a great question. Well, pine cones come from pine trees. And pine trees are conifers, just like spruces and firs. Those all have cones. And these cones actually have the seeds of the tree. So these scales, which are like this part right here, they can open and close on the cone, and that helps the tree release their seeds.
Well, you know, the opening and closing of those scales is what today's experiment is all about.
Awesome.
So, let's get started. So, I'm planning on having 3 mason jars with a pine cone in each. I'll have one in water, one in warm air inside, and one in cold air outside in some 30-degree weather. So what do you think will happen to each of the pine cones in the jars?
Wow. I think that the one in water and also the one in cold air will close up because pine cones tend to close up when they're wet or cold. But I think that the one in the warm air will either like stay the same or open its scales because it's dry and there's no water in the jar.
That is a really good hypothesis. I think for mine, it's pretty much the same. But I think that the pine cones in the cold air jar and the warm air jar won't do anything because there's not enough moisture in the air to make them open or close.
Oh, that's interesting. I can't wait to find out what happens. But before we start, remember to always do silly science with adult supervision. Let's get started.
Let's go! For this experiment, you will need the following materials: 3 pine cones, 3 mason jars, some tape and a marker to label the jars, water, we used tap water, and then somewhere cold to store one of the jars. We put it outside because it was a cold day, preferably below 40 degrees, so like a refrigerator or cooler would also work too. With the pine cones in each jar, label the jars cold air, and warm water. Next, fill the warm water jar with water. Now it's time to find a place to put each jar where they won't be disturbed. Our friend Cosmo will watch over the cold air jar outside. Too high for me to reach. A little too wobbly. You know, I really wasn't sure what I was thinking with this one. Perfect! Our trailblaze will keep watch over the warm air and water jars for us. Alright, we have our 3 jars here. Let's see what happened to each. I like that one. It's cold air.
It looks like the one in water actually closed up a little bit, and so did the one in the cold air that you were just holding.
Oh yeah, and look at the warm air. It looks like it actually opened up a little bit.
Wow. I think it does that because pine cones are hygroscopic.
Hydro what?
Hygroscopic. It means that pine cones soak up water from their surrounding environment, so like humid air or rainwater, and they do this through their scales, so that as they absorb water, the scales push forward and close. So that also happens when they're in the cold.
You know, that is so interesting. So, do they close up because they don't want to absorb too much water, or what's the point of that?
It's close. They close to protect the seeds inside the pine cone. So when it's warm and dry, the pine cones stay open, which helps the seeds come out.
See, that makes a lot of sense. I always wondered why they do that. Interesting. Wow. Well, Hope, I think your hypothesis was more correct than mine. The pine cones in the cold jar closed and the pine cones in the warm air jar opened. I didn't know temperature could affect pine cones the same way water does.
Well, that's okay. I just know a lot about pine cones because I happen to like them a lot. Speaking of temperature and pine cones, I have a present for you.
Good.
Do you want to see what it is?
Yeah. Oh, wow! A pine cone!
Wait. There's more.
There's more.
There's more.
Thank you. That's amazing. So, what's so special about these pine cones, besides that they're a great present? Thank you.
Well, you know how you mentioned how temperature can affect pine cones?
Uh-huh.
So, This is a great example. These are pine cones from the jack pine, and they're serotinous.
So that means they rot in the sun?
Not quite. It means that they'll open in extreme temperatures. So if there's a fire, the resin on the outside of the cone melts and then it can open. This is very important in spreading the tree's seeds and keeping the forest healthy too.
That's so cool. Wait, but aren't forest fires a bad thing?
Not always. Too many fires because of drought can be bad for the environment and also for people's houses. But no fire at all can be bad for the ecosystems that rely on fire to spread seeds, remove invasive plants and nutrients back into the soil, and so much more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I also have heard that oak savannas and prairies, which are two of the ecosystems that can be found around Dayton's Learning Center, they also need fire to stay healthy. The National Park even does something called a controlled burn, where they burn a specific area to keep it healthy. But don't worry, they're professionals.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed learning about pine cones today. As you know, at the end of each episode, I always like to share a silly science joke. Hope, did you know I could cut down an entire tree just by looking at it?
Really?
It's true. I saw it with my own eyes.
I actually have one I'd like to share here. Yeah.
Go for it.
So why do you think pine trees are so bad at sewing?
Why?
Because they always drop their needles.
That's really funny. That's a good one.
Thanks.
As always, thank you for joining us for Silly Science with Sierra. See you next time.
Bye.
Silly science, silly science, silly science.